Imagine living a life where your character isn't just something you perform in the ring. It becomes you. Where the camera shuts off, the arena empties, the fans go home, and you're still the same persona the world sees on TV. Today's story? It's about the rare legends in WWE history who didn't just play a character, they became the character 24/7, in airports, interviews, hotels, gyms, restaurants, backstage, and even around other wrestlers who couldn't figure out where the gimmick ended and the real person began. And we begin with a name that still sends chills through every generation of wrestling fans, The Undertaker. For decades, he didn't just refuse to break character, he treated it like a sacred duty. Reporters would try to crack him, fans would try to make him smile, critics would try to see if he'd slip just once. But no matter where he went, the dead man never turned off. No social media, no interviews out of character, no jokes, no distractions. When the world was switching to reality TV and breaking kayfabe became normal, he stood alone like a relic from a forgotten era. Airlines said he sat silently the entire flight. Wrestlers said he walked backstage like he was actually preparing to bury souls. And the audience? They believed him because he believed his own myth. Even now, people say nobody will ever protect a character like he did again. Then comes Kane, the monster who existed in WWE long before fans had the internet to expose the truth behind the curtain. At the height of the Attitude Era, he went months without speaking, always moving with that same cold, mechanical precision. Interviewers tried to get him to show personality, but he didn't. Wrestlers said he wouldn't laugh backstage, wouldn't break posture, wouldn't let anyone see him as anything but the burned, tortured brother of the dead man. Kane lived his gimmick everywhere he went. Even when he eventually had to evolve on TV, the early years cemented him as one of the most dedicated performers of all time. The industry praised him. Critics said, he's too committed, almost disturbing. And that's exactly what made the Earl legendary. Next up, the powerhouse of old-school intensity, Ultimate Warrior. Some wrestlers played characters. Warrior became a cosmic prophecy in human form. He talked like Warrior, trained like Warrior, and acted like Warrior no matter where he was. Meeting him in real life was like walking into another dimension. Fans who ran into him in public said he rarely spoke normally. His promos? That was him. His energy? That was him. His unpredictability? That was him. WWE critics were often confused, was this a gimmick or was he genuinely wired differently? Nobody knew. Nobody still fully knows. All they know is that he never broke character, even when it didn't make sense, even when it scared people, even when it annoyed executives, he stayed Warrior from beginning to end. Then you have the legend who blurred reality until nobody could tell what was real, Mankind. As the years passed, fans learned that Mick Foley had different sides. But on TV? Mankind was a living embodiment of psychological chaos. During his early days, Mankind refused to appear as anything else. He'd scream backstage. He'd mumble to himself in interviews. He'd confuse reporters who weren't ready for someone who might be acting or might be genuinely spiraling. Critics said it was the most disturbing portrayal of madness ever seen in wrestling. He'd go to charity events and still talk like Mankind. Wrestlers admitted they didn't know whether to comfort him or get away from him. It wasn't just a gimmick, it was a transformation. Then comes the purest of purists, Bob Backlund. In the era of flashy, edgy characters, Backlund went full political madman, lecturing fans, demanding respect, barking rules at reporters, and staying aggressively in gimmick no matter who he talked to. He refused to break character even for children. Fans said he was the most committed champion ever because he kept the same strict, unhinged persona everywhere he went. People expected him to relax off camera, he never did. It made wrestling critics praise him as a living time capsule of kayfabe, protecting a craft others had long abandoned. And finally, the most unpredictable wild card, Goldust. When he first debuted, nobody knew what he was. But Goldust didn't break character for anyone, not interviewers, not journalists, not even wrestlers. He walked around backstage in that unsettling, mysterious tone and made everyone uncomfortable on purpose. Other wrestlers admitted they didn't know how to talk to him. Fans who approached him said he'd whisper lines from his promos just to keep the illusion alive. Critics called him the most bizarre commitment to a gimmick in WWE history. And he loved it. He embraced it. He lived it. He leaned into it harder than anyone expected, and it changed wrestling forever. This world today is different. Social media has destroyed the idea of secrecy. Wrestlers post jokes, selfies, training clips, reality shows, and their lives outside the ring. Kayfabe, the art of never breaking character, is almost gone. Critics say it died. Fans say they miss it. Even the wrestlers themselves admit it's nearly impossible to maintain. But these six proved it can be done. They made childhoods magical, rivalries believable, myths unforgettable, and WWE moments immortal. They weren't characters. They were living legends. And in a world where everything is recorded, everything is exposed, and everyone is obsessed with being real, these wrestlers did the most impossible thing of all, and when you look back at everything, it hits you. The world didn't change because the performers were perfect. It changed because they chose to protect something bigger than themselves. In an era where the curtain gets pulled back every second, where everyone rushes to expose secrets, where every backstage moment is uploaded, clipped, analyzed, and turned into content, there were still a few souls who refused to let the magic die. They held on to a world built on mystery. A world built on illusion. A world where a character wasn't just a costume, but a second heartbeat. Think about that commitment, living every day knowing you can't slip, can't crack a smile, can't let anyone catch that one moment that breaks the illusion. No private life. No off switch. No escape. Just dedication so strong that it intimidated critics, inspired fans, and confused everyone else who didn't understand why someone would devote so much of themselves to a role. But that's what made it powerful. That's what made the atmosphere electric every time they stepped onto a stage or into a room. The audience didn't just believe. The audience felt something. Something raw. Something rare. Something unforgettable. And that's the kind of presence you can't fake. That's the kind of aura that doesn't just appear, it's created inch by inch, day by day, moment by moment, until the line between the act and the person disappears completely. It becomes a myth that walks, talks, breathes, and leaves a shadow bigger than the body casting it. That's the type of energy that doesn't just entertain an audience, it shapes an entire generation of storytelling. Because the truth is, people don't remember every match. They don't remember every storyline. They don't remember every promo. What they remember is how something made them feel. The intensity. The danger. The mystery. The thrill of realizing that some people didn't come to play a role. They came to become it. That kind of commitment is almost extinct now. The industry changed, the world changed, the expectations changed, but those few who protected the illusion built something timeless. Something that feels bigger than reality itself. That level of commitment changes everything. It creates an aura that doesn't disappear. It lingers. It follows you. It becomes the kind of legend that people tell their friends about years later, saying, "You had to be there. You had to feel it. You had to witness it." Because when someone lives their character to that extreme, they stop being part of the show. They become part of the culture. They become a living symbol that represents an era, a mood, a style of storytelling that the world simply doesn't make anymore. And people still talk about that energy today, the idea that once upon a time, certain figures didn't just perform, they existed in a league of their own. A league where silence was powerful, where presence alone could make a room freeze, where mystery mattered more than transparency. A league where the magic wasn't broken every second by a backstage photo or leaked video. A league where reality and fiction blended so perfectly that fans questioned whether the person behind the character even existed at all. That's the kind of mystique the world tries to replicate but never truly succeeds in recreating. Because mystique doesn't come from a script. It doesn't come from lighting or editing or production. It comes from the performer's soul, the willingness to give up comfort, ease, and even parts of their own identity to protect something bigger than themselves. It comes from understanding that suspension of disbelief isn't something the crowd gives freely, it's something the performer must earn with every heartbeat. And when someone is that committed, the legacy becomes something more than memories. It becomes a blueprint. A reminder of what storytelling can achieve when it's pushed to the absolute limit. It becomes a challenge to the future. This is what it looks like when you give everything. Now try to match it. That's why even now, long after the eras have changed, people still crave that old school electricity, the feeling that anything could happen, the feeling that the persona was alive, the feeling that certain individuals didn't step in and out of the role. They lived it. They breathed it. They were it. And no matter how much the world evolves, no matter how many documentaries, interviews, or behind-the-scenes reveals come out, that era of pure, unshakable commitment stands untouched. Because authenticity isn't always about showing your real self. Sometimes authenticity is about becoming something so intensely that it becomes your truth. Something so powerful that it defines your entire career. Something so iconic that it shapes the memories of millions who watched with wide eyes and pounding hearts. And so the story ends on one simple truth, a truth that echoes louder than any arena, louder than any crowd, louder than any moment of fame. Some people don't step into greatness, They commit to it so deeply that it becomes their entire existence.